Good evening everyone, and welcome to this council meeting of the 21st of May 2024, which is being held tonight here in person in the Great Hall at the Civic Centre, 25 Ferris Boulevard, South Morang. And the meeting is also being live streamed. I'm Lydia Wilson, Chair of Council, and I'd also like to introduce my panel administrator colleagues. Firstly, Peter Duncan.
Good evening everyone.
And Administrator Christian Zara.
Good evening, everyone.
I'd also like to introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Craig Lloyd, and ask that he also introduce the members of the Executive Leadership Team in attendance today.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce our Director of Planning and Development, Emma Appleton, our Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Debbie Wood, our Acting Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Sharon Durantini, Executive Manager of Public Affairs, Janine Morgan, and here at the table, Executive Manager of Office of Council and CEO, Jacinta Stevens. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I note that there are no administrator apologies this evening. On behalf of Council, I recognise the rich Aboriginal heritage of this country and acknowledge the Wurundjeri Willem clan and Tongarong people as the traditional owners of lands within the city of Whittlesea, and I'd also like to pay my personal respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to now read our diversity and good governance statement. At the City of Whittlesea, we are proud of our diversity and the many cultures, faiths and beliefs that make up our community. We strive to be an inclusive, welcoming city that fosters active participation, well-being and connection to each other and this land. We commit as a council to making informed decisions to benefit the people of the City of Whittlesea now and into the future, to support our community's vision of a place for all. We do have a number of acknowledgements this evening, and if I could hand over firstly to my colleague, Administrator Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. On Monday, the 27th of May, the City of Whittlesea will hold its annual National Sorry Day service here at the Civic Centre. And Sorry Day has been held here each year since 1998 to mark the release of the Australian Human Rights Commission's report, Bringing Them Home. The report documented the tragic consequences of laws, policies and practices that forcibly removed Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children from their families and communities. The City of Whittlesea invites residents to join Wurundjeri elders, members of the Stolen Generation and council staff in commemorating Sorry Day. The service will start at 10:30 a.m. on next Monday with a smoking ceremony, including a keynote address from First Peoples Assembly member Troy Austin, and conclude with the annual Sorry Walk, which is around the grounds here in the Civic Centre. And the 27th of May also marks the start of National Reconciliation Week, and this year's theme is Now More Than Ever, and it encourages all residents to maintain efforts in supporting justice and the rights of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Chair, I've just got another acknowledgement I'd like to read out, and that is on behalf of Council. I would like to acknowledge Karen Bryant, who in April resigned as a member of the Whittlesea Reconciliation Group after almost 18 years of outstanding service on the WRG. She's a proud Gunditjmara woman, and Karen has worked and volunteered for many, many services and organisations, committees and boards to improve the health and wellbeing outcomes for Aboriginal Victorians. Karen's dedication has seen her recognised with multiple awards, including the City of Whittlesea's Individual Reconciliation Award, which she won in 2012. In 2021, Karen was inducted into the Victorian Aboriginal Honour Roll, which celebrates Aboriginal Victorians who have made a profound contribution to their community and to the state. Although we are losing her leadership and expertise from the WRG, I'm truly delighted to say that Karen will stay on as a member of the Whittlesea Aboriginal Gathering Place Advisory Group, and her commitment to establishing an Aboriginal gathering place has been instrumental in that vision soon to become a reality here in the City of Whittlesea. On behalf of Council and the entire City of Whittlesea, I'd like to thank Karen for her role she has played on the WRG, including as a co-chair, and wish her all the very, very best for the future. In addition to Karen, I would also like to acknowledge the service of fellow Whittlesea Reconciliation Group co-chair, Andrew Morrison, who also resigned in April. Andrew is also a proud Gundamara man who brought a wealth of experience in Aboriginal health to the role, and his leadership of the WRG over the last 18 months was invaluable. On behalf of Council, I also thank Andrew for his service, and I wish him all the very best for the future. That's it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Administrator Duncan, and I'd echo those sentiments of contribution and of our appreciation to Karen Bryant and Andrew Morrison. So thank you for those words. Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple from me. Last week, we recognised Ida Hobbit, the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersex Discrimination and Transphobia. The City of Whittlesea stands against discrimination in all its forms, and we are committed to providing a safe and inclusive place for everyone in our community. Ida Hobbit is about coming together to celebrate the progress that has been made, whilst also acknowledging that we have more work to do to eliminate LGBTIQA+ discrimination. Chair, Neighbourhood House Week was celebrated from the 13th to the 15th of May, and here at the City of Whittlesea we had an exciting lineup of events to celebrate and recognise the important contributions of all our local neighbourhood houses. From painting and crafting to a marvellous mosaic workshop, the activities provided a great opportunity for people to connect, learn and have fun. We have 7 brilliant local neighbourhood houses in the City of Whittlesea: Greenbrook, Lawler, Thomastown, Whittlesea, Mernda, Creeds Farm and Mill Park. And I would like to thank each and every one of them for the important role they play in our community. Not only do they provide a safe and welcoming space, but they also provide essential services. They foster community connections and organise events and activities that bring our community closer together.
Thank you very much, Administrator Zara. I've got a few further acknowledgements this evening. Firstly, in relation to National Volunteer Week. This week is National Volunteer Week, and it's obviously a time for us to celebrate and acknowledge the enormous contribution of our volunteers. They support our community in so many ways with a range of activities and services, including social connection, sport and recreational programs, and importantly, social support. Whether it's assisting with program delivery, tending to community garden spaces, or engaging with seniors in a fun and friendly environment, each of our volunteers has assisted in keeping our community active, healthy and engaged. And clearly, without their dedication, many of these programs would just not be provided. Again, on behalf of Council, we thank all of our volunteers, and I personally look forward to seeing as many of them as possible on Friday at Council's celebratory event. I'd also like to acknowledge the 100-year celebration of Spring Street Hall. And yesterday I was really lucky enough to attend the 100th year birthday celebration of our Spring Street Hall, which is in Thomastown. And the original building was constructed in 1924 by residents after the land was generously donated by the Thomas family, who were the early pioneers of the area. It was incredibly heartwarming to hear all about the significant moments and memories of so many community members who have attended the hall over its past history. and it really holds a treasure trove of memories and has served a huge number of different purposes, including having been a dance hall, movie theatre, schoolroom, library, concert hall, senior citizen club, local scout meeting place, and a venue for numerous community groups and activities. And it continues its wonderful legacy today. It's enjoyed by many locals and community organisations, including craft groups, multicultural groups, seniors groups, food bank and faith groups, and it was a really wonderful celebration yesterday. Finally, it's with a great deal of excitement that I want to just acknowledge the funding commitment by the federal government to the Beveridge Intermodal Freight Terminal. Council welcomed the additional $750 million funding in last week's federal budget towards the delivery of the Camerons Lane interchange, which is at the intersection of the Hume Freeway at Beveridge. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited Beveridge last Friday, and hopefully a number of people will have seen the press in relation to his visit to announce the funding commitment which will enable the delivery of the Beveridge Intermodal Freight Terminal. And that precinct is a major freight and logistics hub in the national network located on the border of the City of Whittlesea and Mitchell Shire, and will ensure job creation both now and into the future. The north of Melbourne is home to more than 1 million people, with the population forecast to grow to just under 1.5 million by 2036. And importantly, the Beveridge Intermodal Precinct is expected to contribute $2.5 billion to the Victorian economy each year and generate an astounding 20,000 jobs in the north. So we'll continue to work with National Intermodal, with our neighbouring councils and all levels of government to support this absolutely vital infrastructure project. If we now move on to declarations of conflict of interest, administrators and officers, if you have a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda, you may verbally disclose the type and nature of the interest now, but you must also make a declaration immediately before consideration of the matter in question. Administrators, are there any items for which you have a conflict of interest to declare?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
I would like to note in relation to item 5.5, which is the tender evaluation report, provision of parks and open space maintenance services, that while not a conflict of interest, I was a former board director of Procurement Australasia, but I've had no association with the organisation for over 4 years. Do any officers present this evening have any conflicts of interest in any items on tonight's agenda to declare?
No, Chair.
Chair.
Thank you. I now seek a motion to confirm the minutes of the following preceding meetings. The scheduled meeting of Council held on the 16th of April 2024 and the hearing of submissions committee meeting held on the 6th of May 2024. Could I have a mover?
I'm happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. I'll now put the matter to a vote. All those in favour of confirming the minutes? The motion is carried. If we now move into public question time, Council allows up to 30 minutes for public questions, petitions or joint letters from our community to be read out by the CEO's delegate and responded to by the CEO. Any questions that relate to matters outside the duties, functions and powers of Council is discourteous or disrespectful, defamatory or intends to prejudice or insult someone may be declined. All questions and responses will be included in the minutes of the council meeting. I note that we have received one public question this evening, and I'll now hand over to Jacinta Stevens, Executive Manager, Office of Council and CEO, to read the question. And if I could also just note that the person who submitted the question, Nicholas Brain, is in attendance this evening, and welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Nick's question is, why is Whittlesea Council proposing to increase rates in the middle of a cost of living crisis in the interest of future rate revenue not being foregone by the municipality when financially distressed households are having to make difficult decisions on whether to skip meals and or skip paying bills simply to keep a roof over their head?
Thank you, and if I could ask the CEO to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Nick. We understand that there are cost of living impacts across Australia right now. The proposal to increase rates in the budget, which is being considered later tonight, is not made lightly. Preparing our budget each year is always a balancing act. Our community expects us to deliver important infrastructure and services, but we also need to ensure that we're financially sustainable. The cost of delivering these services and building infrastructure to our community continues to grow each year. In order to continue to provide the 147 services our community needs, we require a rate increase in line with the rate cap set by the Victorian Government under the Fair Go rating system. This ensures that we're able to provide these important services and projects whilst we're also ensuring our financial sustainability and to continue to deliver into the future. Council proposes to continue to subsidise waste charges, including the Victorian Government's landfill levy, by 22.8% at a cost of $1.9 million. We will continue to offer support through our financial hardship program, and we would encourage people to reach out should they need access to this program. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. Again, if I could thank Nick for his question and attendance this evening. If we move to item 4.2, petitions, we do have one petition this evening. A petition has been received from 12 residents requesting that Whittlesea Council establish an LGBTIQA+ advisory committee. Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 4.2?
I'm happy to move the officer recommendation with a few minor amendments as follows. So that council note the one petition requesting the establishment of a LGBTQIA+ advisory committee, full stop. Then 2, remove that, but it's already gone from up there, to request to establish advisory committee will form part of the review of all advisory committees for consideration by the new council following the October 2024 elections.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We have a joint letter this evening which requests, it's from 3 residents requesting that Whittlesea Council abandon its proposed rate increase for the 2024-25 financial year and freeze rates for 12 months. We call on Council to do so in recognition of the cost of living pressures our community is experiencing. Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 4.3.1?
I'm happy to move that, Chair, just with a small change to part 2.
Would you like to note your changes to part 2, Administrator Zara?
Thank you. So part 2 to read, consider the joint letter as part of the 2024-25 budget deliberations and agenda item 5.2.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We'll now be working through the council agenda this evening, and it is a very large agenda with some very important items that we'll be considering. The first item is item 5.1, Quarterly Corporate Performance Report, Quarter 3, ended the 31st of March 2024. And if I could invite our Acting Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Sharon Durantini, to provide a brief introduction to this item. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the quarterly performance report for the period ending 31st of March 2024, which covers the Community Plan, Action Plan, Good Governance, Capital Works performance and financial performance. I'll hand over to Aaron, our Chief Financial Officer, to take us through the report.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Starting from a Community Plan, Action Plan perspective, out of the 56 key actions to be delivered this financial year, 15 actions have been completed, 39 are reported on track, and 2 actions are reported to monitor, with further details included in the report. From a Capital Works perspective, the year-to-date Capital Works expenditure was $5.9 million behind budget. This was largely as a result of delays in service authority approvals and adjustment to the timing of works to limit the impact on local businesses. It is anticipated that at year-end, Council will finish on $81.4 million and expects carry-forwards of $14.8 million to the next financial year. From a financial performance perspective, Council's operating surplus was $58.9 million, favourable to the year-to-date budget, largely driven by receiving higher than anticipated monetary contributions from developers as a result of continued growth, which are restricted by legislation in how they can be used. The Quarter 3 forecast review is anticipating an operating surplus of $184.1 million, which is $56 million favourable to the adopted budget. I'd like to highlight Council's operating surplus is an accounting result only and does not constitute excess cash available for Council to spend. It is largely made up of either non-cash items, such as asset contributions from developers, or cash items that are restricted by legislation and how they can be used in the future by Council. I propose the recommendations as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
I don't, Chair. Thank you.
I do, Chair. Thank you. Aaron, you've got in here that up until the 31st of March, 15 actions have been completed, which is good, and 39 are on track. Are you confident they will be completed?
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Yes, I am confident, and the officers on a monthly basis monitor and track each project and go through a rigorous process, but also present it to the executive leadership team and put things in place to ensure deliverability of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. I do have a couple of questions, if I could. My first question relates to Capital Works performance and the current level of carry forward. And I wonder whether you could perhaps comment on how our performance is tracking relative to at least the previous year, because that's obviously been something we've constantly focused on. So if you'd like to comment on that.
Thank you, Chair. I will hand over to Unit Manager, Financial Strategy and Performance, Rahul.
Thank you, Chair. So in the Capital Works program, we have made a significant improvement in the Capital Works program since the establishment of the EPMO team and the works and the improvements that they have made over the last couple of years, as well as in the project readiness space. When compared to the previous years, so back in 21-22, the delivery rate for our Capital Works program was low 60. Last year, it was low 70%. And in the current year, we are anticipating between mid 70 to high 70 mark. So we have made significant improvement in the Capital Works space that increase our delivery rate and reduce the carry forwards.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's much improved performance and really good to hear. The second question I have is, I note in the quarterly corporate performance report in relation to financial arrangements, which is on page 21 of the actual report itself, it indicates that there's a number of rate payment arrangements that have been broken. And I wonder whether you could just clarify what that really means and speak a little bit about our financial hardship trends.
Yeah, sure. So the broken arrangement is when a resident enters an arrangement with council and that ceases due to a number of reasons. Either there's an insufficient balance in the account, or account was closed, or the property is on sale. We have an officer who actively monitors the broken arrangement, and we have reduced the number of broken arrangements compared to the last quarter, and in the financial hardship space. So we actively monitor those arrangements, follow up with the residents, and try to reduce the number. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.1?
I'm happy to move it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder?
I'm happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I think a lot has been achieved already, and I'm very happy to hear that we'll close out everything, hopefully, by the end of June. Just congratulations on also the Capital Works program as well. That's a big improvement, which is fantastic. And just well done to everyone in the council officers that have been involved in this part of the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to join Administrator Duncan in congratulating our team, not just for the great results which are reflected in this report, but I think the very forthcoming way that this report is presented in terms of public accountability. Not only is everything in very plain English presented in terms of financial performance and also performance against the Community Plan Action Plan, but I think our team have gone out of their way to actually draw attention to the very few things that are actually under the category of monitor. So they're not sort of buried in the report, they're really up front at the very top of the report. So I just encourage people who might be tuning in tonight to take the time to have a look at the report, which is in the agenda papers, and it's in very plain English language, and I think in terms of public accountability it really represents, I think, a great standard that our team has very much settled into. So through you, just really congratulate them, and not just on the outcomes through the year, but I think great public accountability.
Thank you very much, Administrator Zara. And I was also going to make that exact same point, that this is best practice reporting, with the fact that it's a composite quarterly performance report, which measures our performance across the whole range of different things, not just the financials. But can I also just draw attention to a key highlight that is noted in the report, and that's namely the establishment of and the first meeting of our new Youth Council, which was in early February 2024, and election of our Youth Mayor, Zachary Melvain, and Deputy Mayor Cainett. And we've had the pleasure of meeting with them on several occasions now. For me, that was a real highlight of the previous quarter. So thank you again, we're really trending well. And on that note, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you again. If we now move to item 5.2, Budget 2024-25 and Community Plan Action Plan 2024-25, Adoption and Declaration of Rates. And I am going to note from the outset that in accordance with the governance rules, I will be using my discretion to extend the officer speaking time for up to 4 minutes. Thank you. And again, Sharon, if I could invite you to provide a brief introduction.
Thank you. Thanks. On behalf of the organisation, I'm pleased to present the 24-25 Budget and Community Plan Action Plan. These documents have been prepared in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 and have been meticulously crafted to balance the delivery of services and facilities our growing and diverse community needs today, whilst ensuring we remain financially sustainable in the longer term. I'll hand over to Aaron.
Thank you, Sharon. During the development of these documents, we consulted extensively with residents, workers, students, and visitors to our municipality to understand their priorities. Over 790 individuals participated in our community consultation, sharing their thoughts both online and at 31 community-based pop-up events. For the 2024-25 financial year, the budget proposes an accounting surplus of $144 million. This sounds like a significant amount. However, it is largely made up of non-cash items like asset contributions from developers and cash items restricted for future use, meaning it does not represent extra cash for council to spend. The budget allocates $315 million to continue to deliver 147 critical services to our community, including curbside waste collection, home support services, maternal and child health, and the maintenance of parks and open spaces. Additionally, the budget will invest $108 million in new and upgraded infrastructure through our Capital Works program. This includes significant projects like the Regional Sports Precinct in Mernda, the Aboriginal Gathering Place, and commencing construction of the West Wollert Community Centre. Despite higher inflation rates of 3.6% as of March 2024, we will not be seeking a variation to the rate cap for the 2024-25 year. Our average rates will increase by 2.75% in line with the Victorian Government's Fair Go rating system. The budget has sought to consider the financial pressure of household budgets as a result of inflation and rising cost of living expenses. Council will continue to offer support through its financial hardship program, and the budget provides $2.7 million for community grants. The budget also proposes Council continues to subsidise wage charges by 22.8% at a cost of $1.9 million, covering the state government landfill levy. In addition to the 147 essential services Council delivers every year, the Community Plan Action Plan 2024-25 outlines 59 key actions that the Council will implement starting in July, building on the achievements of the first 3 years of the current Community Plan. This includes the continued upgrade to Whittlesea Public Gardens, construction of the Marnong Community Centre and Library Hub in Donnybrook, our annual tree planting programs and local road resurfacing and reconstruction works. In summary, the Budget 2024-25 and the Community Plan Action Plan 2024-25 balances our commitment to responsible financial management with our continued investment in essential services and programs, upgrading existing facilities and assets, protecting our natural environment and open spaces, and delivering new infrastructure projects to accommodate our diverse and growing community. I propose the recommendations as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that excellent overview within 4 minutes. Well done, Aaron. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
I don't have any questions tonight, Chair.
Not from me, Chair.
I've just got one question, which actually is a question in relation to Part 7 of the officer recommendation. And I wonder if you can just clarify the meaning or intent behind that, because it's asking for authority for the CEO to effect administrative and wording changes to the final budget and community plan, action plan documents if required.
I'm happy to take that one, Chair.
Thank you.
The intent there is in the final printing of the document, if we find a full stop in the wrong place or a page number that's wrong, that's what the intent of that is, to allow that document to be finalised. It's not to make any significant changes or material changes to the document.
Thank you for the clarification. Do I have a mover then for the officer recommendation for item 5.2?
Chair, I would like to move the officer recommendation as a motion with the following changes to points 5 and 7. So at 5, 5 to read, note the total amount that the council intends to raise from general rates is $189,415,620 and /or to such further amount as lawfully levied as a consequence of this resolution. So that's the proposed wording for 5. And picking up on your earlier point, Chair, at 7...
Administrator Zara, sorry, if you could just see on the screen that what's now reflected is your intent.
It is, Chair, but it's a close-run thing with my eyesight, but I'm almost certain that it is. Point number 7, Chair, if I could continue.
Yes, please.
Just picking up your earlier comment. So 7 to read as follows: authorise the Chief Executive Officer to make non-material, administrative and wording changes to the final budget and Community Plan Action Plan documents, if required. And I'm almost certain on the screen is exactly what we've just described.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Do I have a seconder, which is the recommendations that are on the screen now?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, can I extend our sincere thanks to our team, who I think this year have gone even further in the whole budget development process and engaging with the community thoroughly as part of that exercise. It is really something that I think is best practice and something that they should all feel very proud of. Chair, we heard earlier of the 790 people from the local community who've been engaged through this process. That's an incredibly high number. In many ways, the number alone doesn't do credit or enough credit to the work of the team in engaging in almost every different type of engagement process imaginable to reach out to people, from online processes, community pop-ups, engagement sessions, budget submission processes, and to say that the work of developing the annual budget commences at the completion of the last one is not an exaggeration. It literally is something that starts, in our case, basically from tomorrow. After the adoption of this year's budget, our team will start thinking about next year's budget. And that's because this stuff matters, Chair, in an enormous way. Councils, the decisions they make, what goes into the Community Plan Action Plan, the level of competence and attention to detail in the financials that are incorporated into the budget, all of that close work that our team does with the support of local community members participating in those engagement processes, the difference as to whether or not our council area is one that is succeeding and has a council to be proud of, or one that isn't. And I really do applaud the, I think, very sincere way that our team engage with the community in a team effort to produce something of really, I think, great significance and great value to our local community. So through you, Chair, just can I close by thanking the team again, but thanking every one of the 790 local residents and citizens who contributed to making this budget even better through their involvement.
Thank you very much, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with all the comments made by my colleague, Administrator Zara. I would just like to commend the team on the fact that in this year's budget particularly, not that there hasn't been before, but particularly this year, given that there is financial duress across the entire country, but particularly relevant to the City of Whittlesea, that this budget hasn't been formulated and recommended to Council with a tenure. And what I mean by that is you've been sensitive to the needs of our community in the fact that people are struggling, but we still do, as we've discussed in the previous matters, we still need to be able to provide services, but we haven't gone crazy like some other councils and put rates up to ridiculous levels in the current climate. So I think that should be commended, that we are actually listening to community and understanding where they're at, and so in terms of whether it's rates or waste charges and the like, we're obviously still subsidising some charges in terms of landfill rates, but we also did not go crazy with other waste rates as well, and have just kept them as low as possible in terms of we do have to put some things up. So well done to everybody, and I think you should be proud of the fact that you have listened to community and that we are, where we can, trying to do what we can to ensure that the stress isn't overs again, but also still be able to provide those services that are critically important to everybody in the City of Whittlesea.
Thank you very much, Administrator Duncan, and I also concur with all of the comments of my two colleagues. I think it's important to note that as administrators, we've had a number of briefing sessions and discussions with officers in the development of this really critical budget and community plan action plan regarding the budget parameters, the key assumptions, fees and charges, capital priorities, proposed rate increases and waste charges. And I particularly echo the comment that Administrator Duncan made, that at the forefront of our deliberations has really been the recognition of financial challenges for our community and for council itself, and the very obvious cost of living pressures and affordability. We've been mindful, however, also of our financial stewardship responsibilities and the need to leave a lasting legacy of financial sustainability going forward. So we've obviously, as has been reflected already, taken considerable account of the many comments that have come in from our community, the written and verbal submissions, and I also note the joint letter that was tabled this evening. And I just want to very briefly touch on some budget highlights for me, because they are definitely that we're not only continuing in aged care, but an expanded offering, expanded library services across the municipality, and a spread of key capital projects across the older established parts of the municipality and the newer emerging areas as well. And given that I'm nearly out of time, I'm going to end my comments by again echoing my colleagues in saying thank you very much to our finance team for their enormous efforts. And also in relation to the Community Plan Action Plan. It's really been brilliant work, and I'm also really happy to endorse the budget and the Community Plan Action Plan. And I've gone over by 15 seconds. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you again. Item 5.3, Contract 2024-2, Partridge Street Reserve East Soccer Pitch Redevelopment. And if I could invite our Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Debbie Wood, to briefly introduce this report. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to present this report to Council, which includes some really great sustainability initiatives within this contract. So really creative thinking of the use of some materials. But I've got Nick here with me, our Senior Parks Project Manager, who will just take you through the report and any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Nick.
Thank you, Debbie. Good evening, administrators. Partridge Street Reserve in Laylaw is currently home to the Mill Park Soccer Club, which has over 300 members. The purpose of this contract is to design and construct a FIFA-accredited synthetic soccer pitch and for the installation of new LED sports field lighting on the eastern pitch. These works will see the conversion of a natural turf soccer pitch into a synthetic field that will allow usage of 40+ hours per week, in contrast to the current 20 hours per week. This will not only provide greater usage to the tenant club, but it will also increase the availability for surrounding residents and the broader community to undertake both passive and formalised recreation. Public tenders for the contract closed on the 27th of February 2024. The tendered prices and the summary of the evaluation are detailed in the confidential attachment. From an environmental and sustainability perspective, considerations have been made where possible to salvage or repurpose site material through the contract delivery. Recyclable material will be separated from general waste and disposed of at registered local recycling facilities. Additionally, this project sees the installation of a 25mm thick rubber shock pad underlay, and it is estimated to divert approximately 75 tonnes of plastic waste and 70 tonnes of rubber waste from landfill. The contract will also deliver Council's first synthetic surface with an organic infill product, being olive pith, the byproduct from olive oil processing, removing the use of rubber granules as an infill material. Once the contract has been awarded, detailed design is scheduled to commence late June, and construction is to commence in late September, finishing in early 2025.
Could I just ask you to pause for a moment, because I might seek a procedural motion if one of my colleagues would like to move a short extension of time up to 2 minutes.
I'm happy to move in that way, Chair.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. If you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. Funnily enough, the tender from Tiger Turf Australia Pty Limited was determined to be the best value by the Tender Evaluation Panel, and is considered that this company can perform the contract to the required standards and specifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I don't think you really needed an extension of time, but anyway. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item?
I don't have any questions, Chair.
No.
It's very straightforward. Thank you.
No, Chair.
I also have no questions. So do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.3?
I'm happy to move this one, Chair.
And I'm happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan and Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
I don't have a lot to say about turf, but I will just say that I think this is fantastic on so many levels. Not only is it just recycling and using alternative products to create the same surface that people need for soccer, but the fact that for the community as well, it's fantastic that you'll go from 20 to 40 hours a week of usage for people in the community once this is completed. And the final thing I'll say is that's quite quick once the tender's been awarded, that it will be ready to roll in September. So well done to everyone.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. It's an easy one to support. We've run a good process, had a lot of interest, and obviously we're endorsing today the highest ranked tenderer. So it's an easy one to support. There's a lot of innovation in this, so people who might be listening, please be encouraged to read the report and see some of that innovation in a bit more detail. It is amazing to imagine olive pits ground down and used as infill, an organic product, I suppose, something that probably no one in the council chambers tonight would have ever thought of being used in a sporting field. So great to see the innovation being adopted by our team, which will be of value to future tender processes as well. So just for you to congratulate the team and look forward to this one getting done ASAP.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And I was just going to note that we were privileged to be able to see the rubber shock pad underlay and the olive pit infill. So we're very appreciative to be able to see them in person. So thank you for that. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5.4, Tender Report 2023-144, Recycling, Receipt and Sorting. And again, Debbie, if I could invite you to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. I have with me Simone, our Unit Manager of Resource Recovery, to speak to the report, and I'll just hand straight to Simone.
Thank you, Debbie. Over to you, Simone.
Thank you, everyone. I'd just really like to highlight some of the benefits of the contract to the community. This contract will allow Council to influence the overall cost of the recycling service by continuing to invest in diversion programs, as our charges are dependent on contamination rate. So even a 1% reduction in contamination within the recycling bin will reduce the cost of the service. Contamination is tied to Sustainability Victoria's service standards for household waste and recycling, meaning that when a recycling solution is found for a particular item, such as Tetra Paks, this will no longer be considered contamination and it will be an accepted material, thus reducing the cost of the service. We have an option to swap between cost models throughout the life of the contract, depending on what is favourable to Council at the start of the financial year. And through negotiations, we have secured delaying the first CPI increase until July 2025, also reducing the cost over the life of the contract for approximately $950,000. An education contribution of $20,000 per year is included in the contract, and this can be used for in-kind attendances at major events, promotional items, or at the discretion of Council. And we're very excited that Cleanaway has committed to trialling new recycling programs through the curbside service, such as a soft plastics trial and a textiles trial. And finally, with the container deposit scheme, Cleanaway is still committed to a 50% cost share with Council of acceptable CDS materials within the recycling bin.
Well done, Simone. Thank you very much for that introduction. And administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
I don't, Chair.
I've just got one question, and perhaps Simone, you might elaborate. It's great news to hear of the way in which ratepayers excuse me, can reduce cost to Council by reducing contamination in recycling bins. I wonder if you might just elaborate on that a little bit.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Sorry for my croaky voice. You were mentioning before that by reducing the amount of contamination in the recycling bins, that actually reduces the cost to Council.
Yes.
So could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Of course, yeah. So the contamination rate is an agreed rate. So the contamination within the recycling bin, we get charged a tonnage rate. So by reducing the cost of contamination within the recycling bin, it will reduce the cost of the service.
So if we had ratepayers tuning in tonight, the way that they could help the Council reduce the cost of delivery of this service is to pay even more close attention to what they're putting in their recycling bin.
Absolutely, and putting the right things in the right bins will go a long way to helping reduce the cost of the service.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I've just got one further question. Given that there's only been one tenderer for this contract, I wonder whether you can comment about how can we feel satisfied that we're getting value for money. I heard the comments you made about the negotiations and the extra value that we've got, but could you comment about being confident with the cost of this contract? And I don't know whether it's you, Debbie, or Simone.
During the development of the tender, we made sure that the specifications were solid and very clear on what we wanted for the community. We also benchmarked that against other councils and industry best practice to make sure that what we were asking for was delivering for the community. And then once we received the tender, we did some cost analysis with our current contract to make sure that everything aligned and there was no surprises. And we were able to look at, during negotiations, we were able to look at different ways that we could capitalise on the submission so that we could get some best outcomes for the community.
Thank you. My second question was going to be, did we undertake any benchmarking? But you've already responded to that. Thank you very much. Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.4?
I'm happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And a seconder?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. It's great work by our team. It's a very large contract, very important. I mentioned before in an earlier tender award that there was a lot of innovation in the Partridge Street project, and there's a lot of innovation in this too, Chair. I really like to see that coming through. In particular, I drew out before in the question that I asked, this idea of civic involvement in reducing cost to council. I love it. It's a great way of really involving people in addressing something that delivers not just environmental value but public value. the less money we're spending on this contract means that there's more money available for all the other things that are so important to what we do at the City of Whittlesea. So really through you, Chair, to thank the team and the process, and obviously look forward to working closely with the successful tenderer now and delivering a great outcome for the community.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
No, thanks, Chair.
I will just simply conclude by echoing those comments of appreciation to staff. This is a really good outcome for our community, and I love the fact that there had been those negotiations and all the value add going back into our community as well. So well done to everyone. Thank you. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. So if we move to item 5.5, Tender Evaluation Report, Contract 2023-118, Provision of Parks and Open Space Maintenance Services for the City of Whittlesea. And again, as I did earlier in the evening, in accordance with our governance rules, I'm going to be using my discretion to extend the officer's speaking time in the first instance for up to 4 minutes. Thank you. Debbie, if I could ask whether you would like to introduce this item.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Now you've extended time, I might say something. No, look, this is a really significant contract, not just in scale and cost, but also significant to the impact that it has for our residents and the way that they actually experience our city. So the work that's been done on this is really trying to do the best that we can. We've made some changes to the contract, which Mark will go through, and it is really just to get the best outcome we can for our community. So I have Mark here with me, our Unit Manager of Parks and City Forest, and he'll talk through the report and the recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. The Parks Maintenance contract has traditionally been delivered by one supplier since April 2019. But we all recognise what a difference well-maintained parks and open space throughout the City of Whittlesea means. Presenting the city as a beautiful space, cherished active and passive recreation, improved health and well-being outcomes, and ultimately social cohesion and connectedness because of parks. Council acknowledges that the service has not always met councils' or communities' expectations under the current model. To ensure this, a new tender contract was put out to market, dividing the parks into 3 geographic zones, north, east and west, with each potentially being managed by a different supplier, and sports fields maintenance and park infrastructure maintenance as separate contracts. A tender probity and evaluation plan was specifically designed for this tender process, and all tenders received were evaluated in accordance with that plan. And the evaluation involves scoring of conforming and competitive tenders according to these predetermined criteria and weightings. It should be said the weightings varied a little bit from the usual established guidelines, and commentary is provided in the report clarifying the rationale for this. Council also engaged Procurement Australia, a professional procurement and consulting firm, to manage the procurement process, as well as Pitcher Partners as its probity partners for awarding of this tender. A request for tender was released on 1st November last year, and an industry briefing and site visits happened in November, and tenders for the contract closed on 13th December 2023. Council received 11 submissions, of which 2 were deemed non-compliant, leaving 9 submissions which were carefully scrutinised by subject matter experts and the evaluation panel. Tendered costs received were significantly higher than current contract costs, but it's worth noting that based on financial benchmarking against other councils and even growth councils, the tendered costs are still lower at the City of Whittlesea in comparison. But the higher costs can also be accounted for because of additional resourcing to deliver the level of service expected by council and the community. For instance, between them, the contractor will employ at least 23 additional staff, as well as predicted growth. We expect more that every year we are getting more parks being handed over, so about an 8% increase annually. Procurement Australia and the evaluation panel also negotiated with shortlisted suppliers to just ensure we got the best and final offers and ultimately best value achieved for council. The initial term will commence on 1st April next year and end on 31st March 2031, and options exist to extend the contract up to 31st March 2035. So I propose the officer recommendations as found in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, again for a really comprehensive overview of this really important contract. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
I don't, Chair. No, I don't have any questions.
I do, Chair. Thank you. Debbie or Mark, I'm not sure who'd want to answer this question, but obviously this is a substantially larger contract. Would it be fair to say that now we have portioned out areas and we know exactly what we're dealing with and the level of service that Council expect on behalf of the community, that this is really the true cost of what it's going to take to have the service that our community expects from us?
Yes, is my answer, and the fact that I mentioned councils who benchmarked against other councils in terms of what they spend on maintaining their parks and open space, and as I said, this is still lower than other similar growth councils.
Okay, great, thank you.
That was really going to be my question as well, so I've got no further questions. So do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.5?
I'm happy to move this one, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder?
Happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
I think, what am I saying? Sorry, I was writing something. I think this is really important, obviously, to community that we get this right, and that I think the fact that we've now got portion A, portion B, and we've also carved out sports fields and other things is really quite clever, because then we know exactly this is your area, and we can hold people to account better. But it means we've got more control over what's happening, and I think all officers involved in this paper and recommendation and the tender process as well, everybody that's been involved both at Council and obviously pitch partners and others and probity advisors, thank you, and I think this will be a much better outcome for everyone across the municipality. So well done to everybody.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly agree with Administrator Duncan's comments. I was just reflecting, Chair, listening to Administrator Duncan, that we sort of have this in this public council meeting process in front of us for about 4 or 5 minutes in total. But the amount of work that's gone into this is truly staggering. It's months and months and months of work. Dealing with complex disaggregation of contracts into different areas and different segments, all to drive public value. And the reason for, I guess, all of that work and the employment of expert advisors and probity advisors and people to give advice on capability and all sorts of things, and the best way to do it is because parks and open space maintenance are just so important to livability and amenity, and it's, I think it's probably true to say that we've had some gaps and we've sought to address them, and that's because local residents tell us that this is a very, very high priority. This is one of the reasons that people want to live in places like City of Whittlesea. They want to have great lifestyle, enjoy great parks and gardens, and we're paying more than we have, but it's in line with what other places are paying in order to provide great public value to local residents. So I really support this, support the work that's been done and the responsiveness of all of our council team in hearing that call from local residents that they want a higher standard, they want things to be really excellent in this area of work, and our team, I think, have met the challenge through what they've come up with in this different way of doing this work, which is going to see more people on the ground, more work being done and a higher standard. I really support that. Well done to our team.
Thank you very much, Administrator Zara. I also am compelled to make some comments because this is really one of the most important contracts that we've considered as administrators and that we will be actually awarding during our term. And my colleagues have indicated, as I feel, that we're only too well aware of the importance of our very precious parks and open spaces to our community. We've heard this loud and clear almost every day, every community consultation, coffee with council, through multiple resident feedback. This has been a very much repeat theme. And regarding the level of service that's been provided. And you've made the comment, and in the report, that we're a massive and rapidly growing municipality with the ongoing commissioning of new assets, new areas of parks and gardens and open space, making this contract just so important. I just want to comment on the process, because obviously as administrators we're not involved in the actual process itself. And I think the fact that there was the engagement of Procurement Australia coupled with independent probity advisors with Pitcher Partners and the structure of the tender process and specification, where it was really made clear from the outset that no one tenderer would be awarded the contract for all categories to minimise risk, and you undertook site visits. And then you noted, Mark, on a couple of occasions the benchmarking that had been undertaken. I think that's really, really important to be able to really verify our relative costs compared to other growth councils. So I very much support and commend the work of council officers and very happy to also support the officer recommendation for item 5.5. And I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you again. Item 5.6, RFT 2023-165, Design and Construction of the West Wollert Community Centre, tender evaluation. And again, Debbie, if I could invite you to provide a brief introduction.
Thank you, Chair. Just another facility for our community to enjoy in our growth areas. So this is for the West Wollert Community Centre tender evaluation report. So I have Mark here with me, our Unit Manager, Community Infrastructure Delivery, just to talk through the report. Thanks.
Thank you. Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. The award of this contract is for the design and construction of the West Wollert Community Centre. That will include a 3-room kindergarten with outdoor play area, 2-room maternal child health.
Mark, sorry, could I just ask, either your mic's not on or just whether you could speak up a little bit.
Just needs to get really close to it.
Sorry.
That's good.
Yes, so this contract will include a 3-room kindergarten with outdoor play area, 2-room maternal child health area, community hall with kitchen, community lounge and library, changing places facility, amenities, car parking and landscaping. The area of the building is approximately 1,966 square metres. These works are very important as it will provide essential infrastructure to the growing Wollert community. In undertaking the tender evaluation, Bowden Corporation Proprietary Limited was determined by the tender evaluation panel to be best value, as it is considered that this company can undertake the contract scope of works to the required specifications and standards. Bowden Corporation have the required capability to undertake the project, as they have delivered a similar range of design and construction projects in the past, and together with the allocated design team, they have appropriately experienced qualified personnel to deliver the project. Their proposed work program submitted indicated that they could meet Council's timelines for the delivery of the project, with the design scheduled to commence in late June 2024 and the construction to be commenced in early 2025 and be completed in mid to late 2026. Therefore, it is recommended by the tender evaluation panel that the contract 2023-165 for the design and construction of the West Wollert Community Centre be awarded to Bowden Corporation. Thank you.
Right on cue. Thank you, Mark. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
I don't, Chair.
I don't, Chair, no.
I also have no questions, so I'm now seeking a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.6.
Happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And a seconder?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
I'll be brief, Chair. It's great work by our team. This is going to be, I think very quickly, a very highly utilised community asset. It's a fast-growing community. There's a lot of demand. And this is a very carefully put together piece of community infrastructure that I think will add real value to the livability of that community. It's another easy one to support. We had great interest through the tender process. We had a fairly large number of tenderers, and we're going with the one that was most highly ranked. So I congratulate the team for their work and thoroughness and look forward to us getting on with it and delivering it.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
I think Administrator Zara summed it up perfectly on my behalf as well. Thank you, team.
I think Administrator Zara summed it up perfectly, and I've got nothing further to add. So I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.7, which is another tender evaluation report, contract 2023-110, facilities management. And again, Debbie, if I could invite you to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to say another significant contract, but this one is around our buildings and making sure that our buildings are really well maintained, that they're fit for purpose for the use that's required by our community. So I have Danny here, our Unit Manager, Facility Management, to talk through the report, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Good evening, Administrators. It's my pleasure to present the report to award the Facilities Management Contract 2023-110. Although the Council has an existing facilities management contract with the option for extensions, a review of the existing contract identified a range of limitations that are deemed as a significant material change and require a new contract to be developed, which followed the public tender process. The new facilities management contract provided a strategic management framework to maintain Council's 199 buildings to a high standard, with the ability to adjust levels of service to ensure the financial stability whilst balancing the needs and the expectations for the community. In response to the public tender, 5 submissions were received and were thoroughly evaluated through a tender evaluation panel, which comprised of 3 voting members, procurement advisor and ARC Blue, our independent probity advisor. The evaluation process was also audited by an independent probity auditor, Pitcher Partners, and both parties, probity advisor and auditor, finding the procurement evaluation process was conducted in accordance with the tender evaluation plan. In conclusion, the highest ranked tenderer was Platinum FM, with the officer's recommendations are as presented within the report. Thank you, Administrators, and I'm open for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Danny. Administrators, do you have any questions?
I don't, Chair. Thank you.
Chair.
I've got one question, if I could, and Debbie, I'll address it to you in the first instance. Could you just clarify why there's a once-off transition fee, given that Platinum FM are the current providers of the facilities management services to Council? And I do note the point that was made that there are significant material changes, but could you comment about that?
Yeah, and that's probably the main point, and I could comment, but I'll let Danny comment about it.
Danny.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an entirely new contract that was developed. The contract includes a number of key performance indicators, along with abatements with those key performance indicators. The new contract also has a significant financial reporting that's required, as well as the specification now aligns with Council's building asset management plan and allows Council to undertake asset management.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. If there's no further questions, do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.7?
Happy to move that one, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan.
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
Nothing from me, Chair, except well done to the team. Another obviously important contract for the community and for Council, so very well explained as well. Thank you. That's it from me.
I'll be brief too, Chair. It's great work by our team. I just encourage those people who might be council watchers tuning in tonight to follow proceedings to look in detail at the officers' report, which are in the council agenda papers, which sets out comprehensively what I think is an exhaustive and also very innovative process that our team have followed. I think there's a lot of public value that's been generated through this process, and you can see that. You get a sense of it in reading the report and what's happened in each of the stages to produce what is, I think, a really good outcome now for the community. It is a very large contract, and I'll just repeat those comments I made earlier about the parks and open space. I would say sort of equally, Chair, that our council facilities, our halls and community assets are a very big part, along with our parks and open spaces, of the livability of our local community and the amenity that people feel and the public value from people's rates. So I really commend the team on what is a very big contract and I think great process that's been run to produce something of real value. So well done.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And I was only just going to make the point that it's so pleasing to see and read our tender processes, the ongoing improvements with our specifications and contract documentation. You talked about asset management and improved reporting. It's all so good to hear, so well done to the team again. And do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.7? Oh, sorry. I'm now put that motion to a vote. It's getting late in the night. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We're now moving into some governance items. So item 5.8 is the governance report, and I'm going to invite Jacinta Stevens, our Executive Manager, Office of Council and the CEO, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. This report combines three separate items which are all governance related for Council's consideration and endorsement. The first is a summary of informal meetings of administrators that outlines at a high level briefing staff have provided administrators since the April Council meeting. The Councillor Expense and Support Policy incorporates advice received from the Department of Premier and Cabinet in late 2023 around significant increases in cyber security. The policy addresses the advice by prohibiting council-issued IT devices from being taken overseas for official or personal related travel. The policy has also been strengthened to ensure council-issued devices are used in a lawful manner. The last item is seeking approval to extend two independent Audit and Risk Committee members, Jen Johansson and Bruce Pottinger, for a further term of 3 years. This request for Council's consideration is in accordance with the Audit and Risk Committee Charter. Both Jen and Bruce have been extremely committed to and provide invaluable contributions at the quarterly Audit and Risk Committee. Therefore, officers are seeking Council's approval for a 3-year extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
I don't have any questions, Chair, no.
No, Chair.
I also have no questions, so I'm seeking a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.8.
I'll move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
I won't speak to this, Chair, thank you.
Administrator Duncan?
No, thanks, Chair.
I will just make a very brief comment, and that's just to acknowledge that this is a composite report now, which I think is really good in relation to some key governance matters, and also just finally to acknowledge the contribution of Jen Johansson and Bruce Potgieter and their enormous contribution to the Audit and Risk Committee over a number of years, so I really support their further 3-year extension. So thank you for that, and I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 5.9, Audit and Risk Committee Charter, and again, Jacinta, if I could invite you to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Following an extensive review of the Charter with members of the Audit and Risk Committee, this report is seeking Council's consideration and formal adoption of the Committee's Charter. The recent review of the Charter was to ensure all requirements under the Local Government Act were covered and clearly articulated. The governance around membership, appointment and remuneration were clear and ensured best value for Council. Attendance, either fully virtual or hybrid, was outlined and made a lot clearer, and areas of responsibilities were updated and documented against the best practices already occurring by the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta. Again, administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item?
No questions, Chair.
No, Chair.
I also have no questions, so do I have a mover and a seconder for the officer recommendation for item 5.9?
I'll move it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara, would you like to speak to this item?
Briefly, Chair, there's obviously been good discussion about this update to the revised Charter. I think it reflects very good practice, and I applaud the discussion process that's gone on ahead of us receiving this today to get it into a shape and form that I think really does represent best practice. So congratulations to our team who've navigated that process, and our sincere thanks through you to the Audit and Risk Committee.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
No, thanks, Chair.
I've got nothing further to add, so I'm going to put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Another governance item, which is item 5.10, draft governance rules. And again, Jacinta, if you'd like to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. This report is seeking endorsement of the draft governance rules for release to the community for feedback between the period of 22 May and the 5th of June 2024. The amendments made to the current version are predominantly minor and relate to areas such as increasing officer speaking time to 3 minutes when introducing a council report, increasing public speaking time at hearing of submission committee meetings from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, clarity around the use of placards, posters, megaphones within the council chamber, and other administrative updates, for example, just some numbering and formatting. Following community feedback, the governance rules will be presented back to Council for formal adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item?
No, Chair.
Administrator Zara?
No, Chair.
So I've got no questions either, so I'm seeking a mover of the officer recommendation for item 5.10.
I'm happy to move it, Chair, but with a minor amendment to Part 2 of the recommendation as follows. 2 should now read, resolve to release the draft governance rules to the community, comma, with track changes, and comma, seeking their feedback between the period 22 May 2024 and 5 June 2024.
Could I just, I think Administrator Zara, you said with track changes?
Yeah, I'm happy with tracked. I think we all know what we're talking about, Chair, so... Yep.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Administrator Zara.
I'll just be brief. This is a good opportunity to involve the community, and my very minor amendment is about making that process as user-friendly as possible so that people can very easily and quickly see where the changes have been made, and hopefully that'll encourage broader participation in that process. No other comments from me, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan?
No, Chair.
Could I just note, and I know that the draft governance rules will now be going out on public consultation, but I strongly support the further amendments, and you've only got to really look at today's council meeting to see that increase in speaking time for officers from 2 to 3 minutes is something really important and there's also things like the adjustment of council meeting commencement and closing times. I think this is the fourth time that we will have been considering the governance rules in the term of administrators, and it'll obviously be the final time that we'll be considering them. So it's important to have the ongoing updates and improvements. So I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.11, CEO Employment Matters Advisory Committee. And again, Jacinta, this is your report, so if you'd like to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. This report is seeking Council's consideration and approval of two items directly relating to the CEO Employment Matters Advisory Committee, shortened to CMAC. The first is the consideration of the CMAC policy, which was recently reviewed and amended to strengthen the processes should a council wish to raise a concern relating to the CEO's performance or conduct. Process the Mayor will follow in updating all councillors following the CEO midterm review, membership of the CMAC committee, and minor amendments, updates, as an example, just some formatting. The second item is for Council to consider and adopt a change to the independent chair's fee structure. The current structure allows for 2 meetings annually. However, it has become evident additional meetings, for example, the establishment and consideration of the CEO annual key performance indicators, was required. There are also additional obligations required of the independent chair related to the CEO's employment, for example, preparing a midterm report for the Mayor, that are also necessary under the CMAC policy. The annual program fees outlined under the officer recommendations are extremely competitive and reasonable, and if not, on the lower end of the scale when compared to same or similar roles across the public and private sector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jacinta. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
I also have no questions. So do I have a mover for the officer recommendation
Happy
for item
to move,
5.11? Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder?
I'm happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan?
No, thanks, Chair.
Administrator Zara?
This is a good process, Chair, and I think we'd all say that this is an important part of our governance work as administrators, to see this important appointment settled in and operating at a highly effective level, which I think I can speak for all of us when I say, Chair, that we're happy with how this process is going. So I'm very supportive of this.
Thank you, Administrator Zara, and I'd echo that comment. This will be, again, the final time that we'll be considering the charter of the Employment Matters Advisory Committee, and I just acknowledge the comment that you made, Jacinta, about the benchmarking in relation to the independent chair. I think it's really important to note in terms of value for money. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. If we now move to notices of motion, and I note that there are no notices of motion this evening. Administrators, are there any items of urgent business?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
I also have none. So if I could then ask Administrator Duncan if she would like to make a report both to the Council and members of the public.
Thank you, Chair. What am I doing? I'm reporting on what I've been up to. Sorry, I had a moment there. I attended the Whittlesea Reconciliation Group in April. I also attended with yourself the Epping RSL sub-branch Anzac Memorial March, which was just fantastic. So well done to everyone at the Epping RSL. Council briefing, of course, and on last Friday I attended the Municipal Association of Victoria's State Council at the Melbourne Town Hall, and that was a very good event. And then obviously the council meeting tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. Like Administrator Duncan, I participate in those briefings, the Special Counsel briefing, the budget hearing submissions, meeting process, and other briefings since our last meeting. And in addition to that, participated on behalf of Council in the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which took place last week.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I won't echo the functions that have already been mentioned by my colleagues, but I had a meeting of the Yarra Plenty Regional Library Corporation, and I'm the current chair of that board. I attended the Interface Council's group forum, which is always a very important forum for sharing some of the key issues across the interface group of councils. We had a coffee with council session at Mill Park, and they're always very enjoyable to talk to residents about matters of priority. Importantly, I attended the La Trobe University Local Government Roundtable with all of the Northern Councils, Alliance Mayors and CEOs, and that's really just about future planning for the massive site of La Trobe University and what they are wishing to create as part of their long-term vision. And also I attended online a briefing by the Department of Transport and Planning regarding the Interstate Freight Terminals strategy update. I already mentioned during the acknowledgement my attendance along with the CEO at Spring Street Hall's 100th birthday celebrations, which was a wonderful event to attend. So I'll now ask the CEO to provide an update to both council and members of the public.
Thank you, Chair. The City of Whittlesea was proud to have been a finalist in 4 categories in the recent Local Government Professional Awards for Excellent Awards, in the categories of Innovative Management Initiative for our Integrated Planning Outcomes and Measurement Framework project, in the Service Delivery Initiative category for our Voice of Customer project. We were nominated in the Young Achiever Award. Ryan Aylott, who's here with us this evening, was nominated in that category and was a finalist. He's currently the Acting Manager of Compliance and Environmental Health. And in the Community and Integrated Planning Award, we were also nominated and a finalist in the Integrated Planning Outcomes and Measurement Framework project as well. So it's a great achievement to be shortlisted in amongst a very competitive field, and I'd like to acknowledge all of those that were part of those projects. I'd also like to congratulate Debbie Wood, our Director of Infrastructure and Environment, who last month was named in the Victorian Institute of Public Administration's Top 50 Public Sector Women of 2024. The award recognises the remarkable achievement of women across the public sector. Debbie is truly deserving of this recognition. Her unique brand of leadership empowers her team to deliver exceptional infrastructure and public spaces for our community. Well done, Debbie. I'm pleased to report that the construction has started of the Quarry Hills Connecting Trails project, which will see an additional 4.5 kilometres of walking and cycling paths. There'll be 5 new trails ranging in length from 300 metres to 1.5 kilometres that will showcase the parkland's natural beauty. These trails will provide access to key lookout points with city and mountain views, as well as highlight the site's significance to the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri Willam clan. The trails will be delivered in stages throughout 2024. In addition to Council's $1.9 million, the project received more than $300,000 from the Victorian Government's Growing Suburbs Fund. Works have begun on a significant road project that will provide access to the future regional sports precinct at Mernda. The new Plenty Road Everton Drive intersection is the first stage of the sports precinct, which, when built, will provide much-needed sporting facilities in the northern region. The road project involves the extension of Everton Drive about 100 metres east to connect to Plenty Road and the creation of a new traffic light controlled intersection. The intersection will help to improve traffic flow around Mernda and provide access via Everton Drive to the sports precinct. Last month, the Victorian Government announced a $10 million funding boost from the Growth Areas Infrastructure Contribution Fund to support the construction of the internal roads and transport infrastructure for the precinct. So that's in addition to the previous $20 million election commitment for the regional sports precinct from the Victorian Government. And with your indulgence, can I ask for a short extension, please?
Oh, of course you can. Do I need to seek a procedural motion for an extension? No.
Okay. With just over 5 months until the local government elections in October, I'd like to encourage those in our community who are passionate about making a difference to consider standing for council. Serving as a councillor is a unique opportunity to represent your community and actively participate in shaping the future of our municipality. For anyone considering nominating as a candidate, I encourage you to attend an upcoming information session to find out more, have your questions answered and gain insight into what it means to be a councillor. The City of Whittlesea Candidate Information Showcase will be held on Thursday the 25th of July from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. here at the Council offices. There is also a range of other information sessions available over the coming months run by the Municipal Association of Victoria and the Victorian Local Governance Association, with all details being on our website. We welcome the funding announcement earlier this week from the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action from their Open Space for Everyone dog park program. It's an interesting title. $340,000 for a dog park at the Whittlesea Public Gardens in Lalor, and $500,000 for the dog park at Alumbra Park in Wollert. And finally, it's with great sadness that I share the passing of City of Whittlesea's employee Sam Girk after a battle with illness. Sam worked with our resource recovery team as a litter enforcement officer. His hard work and guidance helped to establish the newly formed team, which will have a lasting impact on our community. His contribution to the environment and the local community cannot be understated, and I would particularly like to acknowledge the impact that Sam made around litter reduction in Lalor and Thomastown. On behalf of Council, I extend our deepest sympathies to Sam's family and friends. Vale Sam. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Craig. Can I also extend on behalf of administrators our sympathy in relation to the passing of Sam? But also, could I also pass on our congratulations to Debbie and also to Ryan for their nominations. And thank you for that further plug in relation to the council elections. And it's important to note that all of these verbal reports will actually be documented in the minutes. Administrators, I now require a motion to close the meeting to the public under section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 for the consideration of confidential items. Item 9.1, Phase 2, contaminated land remediation at 240 W Bints Road, Wollert. Do I have a mover to close the meeting for consideration of the confidential item?
Happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. That brings us to the end of the open meeting, and therefore I close the open meeting at 7:37 p.m. Thank you.